guys, and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today covers the serial killer who is known as Bible John. To this day we still have no idea who this person was. Between 1968 and 1969 in Glasgow he murdered 3 women, and the fact that we just never knew who he was is pretty damn scary, to be honest. The investigation into Bible John would become one of the biggest in Scottish history. This case was suggested by CD, so thank you for that. I appreciate any suggestions you guys have, and of course if you have any more, please do let me know. Bible John's first victim was a 25-year-old woman called Patricia Docker. Patricia worked as an auxiliary nurse in Mearnskirk. She often worked night shifts, and she did have a husband and a son, a 4-year-old son, but her and her husband were separated, and she actually was living with her parents at the time. So this night in particular she was off work, and she told her parents that she was going to go to the Majestic Ballroom where she would just go out, have fun and enjoy a night of dancing. So off she goes, and then she doesn't return home. Her parents noticed this, but they weren't too worried because they just figured that she'd spend the night at her friend's house. But unfortunately that wasn't the case. On the 23rd of February in 1968, her body was found by a man who was just on his way to work. He went to the garage to get in his car, and that is where he found her body. She was naked. Initially he actually thought it was a mannequin, and so he goes over and kind of nudges it with his foot, and then he realizes that it's actually a body, and he calls the police reporting that a male has been found in his body. He didn't know it was female initially, and not that it should be the case, but at the time there was a lot of crime and there was a lot of homelessness in Glasgow, and the police just kind of thought like it was a homeless guy that had just, I don't know, passed away, and they didn't make it a priority. They didn't come straight away, which obviously, you know, is so wrong anyway. But when they did finally turn up, they realised that it was a woman. She had very clear signs of blunt force trauma to her face and like head area. That wasn't a cause of death though. When they did an autopsy, it revealed that she was actually strangled by a ligature, which was thought to be a bell of some sort. Now, depending on which source you look at, some say that there was sexual assault occurred and some say that there wasn't. But personally, when you look into the other 2 victims who were, I believe that she probably was as well. She was also on her period at the time, and they found her sanitary towel close by. They were pretty quick to identify Patricia because when the ambulance worker came to collect her body, he recognised her, said that she was a nurse at the hospital, and from there they got in touch with obviously her family, and her father would identify her the next day. So the police begin their investigation. They did door-to-door inquiries. They combed the crime scene because her clothes were missing. She had a handbag and a watch, and all of that was missing too. They actually did find her handbag during an underwater search a little bit later on, and her watch was recovered from another body of water that was close by, but they never did find her clothes. One witness came forward to say that they heard a female voice screaming, "Leave me alone," that evening. So obviously they speak to her parents, who tell them that she had planned to go to the Majestic Ballroom, but it wasn't actually fully the case. We don't know whether she went to the Majestic Ballroom first, because that closed around 10ish, and then maybe went on to Barrowland Ballroom, or whether she just didn't go to Majestic Ballroom at all. And if that was the case, it's thought that maybe she didn't tell her parents exactly where she was going, because every Thursday they had an over 25s night, and that night was sort of notoriously known as being a pickup area kind of thing. It was only sort of that Thursday night, but people often went to pick people up. So maybe she lied to her parents because she didn't want them to know that she was there and to worry about her. Or maybe again she didn't lie at all and she did go to Majestic Ball but then ended up there later on. But that kind of hindered the police investigation initially, because obviously they're looking into the Majestic Ballroom, and that wasn't even where she actually was sort of last seen. So they looked into that initially, but then obviously realised, they did find out that she went to Barrowland Ballroom and started looking into that as well. So they thought that she ended up at Barrowland and met someone that would eventually take her life. It was thought that she was probably killed not long after actually leaving the dance hall, that this person grabbed her, attacked her, maybe by punches in the sort of head area, which is where she had the blunt force trauma, which is when she most likely screamed. That witness heard her scream, "Leave me alone." Then possibly sexually assaulted her, if you believe, you know, that she was or she wasn't. That section is unclear, but that they strangled her and then, I don't know, probably dumped her body in the garage, because there was not sort of a lot of blood around the area or anything like that, so it's believed that maybe she was attacked elsewhere and then taken there later on. It will be another year before a woman fell victim to Bible John, and that would be the 16th of August in 1969. 32-year-old Jemima McDonald, a mother of 3, would be his unfortunate next target. She went to Barrowland Ballroom that night, something that she often did. You know, it was a place to enjoy, have some fun at, and that is exactly what she did. Again, they only had the reputation on a Thursday, and this was like a Saturday or something like that. So, you know, it was just a place to enjoy yourself at that point. Her sister Margaret said that she would watch her children while she went out and had a bit of fun. Margaret grew concerned when obviously she didn't come home, and then she began to hear these rumours. So she decides that she is going to go out and check these rumours out for herself. And these rumours were that she heard that some young children had actually discovered a body in a derelict building in McKee Street. So out Margaret goes, fearing the worst. Obviously her sister hasn't come home and she's petrified as to what she might find, but she goes anyway. And when she approaches the building, she finds the body of her sister. Once more, Jemima had blunt force trauma to her face area. She was lying face down. She was actually fully clothed, but her stockings and shoes had been removed and were at the side of her. Even though she was fully clothed, her underwear had been torn. She was also found to be on her period as well, and they found her sanitary towel close by once more. An autopsy was done. It was confirmed that she had been sexually assaulted. She had obviously the blunt force trauma to her head, and that most likely she had actually been strangled by her own stocking. It was believed that she had actually been killed 30 hours before they found her. Police also found a number of witnesses that heard a female scream, but they couldn't actually recall the time of that. Some more witnesses came forward to say that they had seen Jemima with a well-dressed, well-spoken man who had short dark hair with fair streaks in it and spoke with a distinctive Glaswegian accent, so was clearly from the area. He looked to be around the age of about 25 to 35 and was between 6 foot and 6'2" tall. They also heard him often reference the Bible, and that would actually become where he got his name from. They saw that just after midnight, Jemima left with this man. Witnesses also confirmed that after seeing the pair leave at midnight, they were last seen walking down Main Street or Landers Street, which would have actually been the direction that Jemima would have actually walked to get home, and that was around 12:40 a.m. Initially, the police didn't really link the two cases. They didn't think that Patricia's murder and Jemima's murderer were both the same person. Despite all of the similarities between the women, and there were a lot, they were quite striking similarities in the way that which they were murdered and where they were taken from. It actually took a long time for the police to link the two murders, around 18 months, I believe. They couldn't say for sure, obviously, that it was the same person, but they couldn't really rule it out because there was just so many similarities. Up to this point, Patricia's case had actually gone cold. Obviously, a lot of time had passed between Patricia's murder and Jemima's murder, and in the meantime her case had gone cold, but Jemima's murder kind of brought Patricia's murder back to the forefront of everyone's mind and back in the eyes of the police. It was thought that he had some geographical knowledge of the area, but that possibly he hadn't been in the area for very long or was new to the area because people hadn't seen him before or, you know, with these women before. So the investigation continues. Police work with the witnesses to create a composite sketch. And they took this to the media in the hopes that someone would recognise them, someone would, you know something, but that didn't lead anywhere. They also set up this discreet surveillance in Barrowland to try and catch him, essentially. Unfortunately, that didn't lead to any new suspects or leads or anything like that either. Obviously, that was a place where the two women were last known to be, And so you're thinking that possibly maybe his hunting ground or something like that. And so they put the surveillance up, but it led nowhere. And then in October of 69, that came to an end because they just didn't get anywhere with it. They couldn't carry it on forever. Also, a lot of people had stopped going to the ballroom for a little while because obviously these two women were seemingly targeted from there. And so, you know, I can't blame people for not wanting to go there. Then on the 31st of October 1969, a man that was out walking his dog found a naked body behind a building in Glasgow. She would be later identified as 29-year-old Helen Puttuck. Helen had left for a night in Barrowland once more, but this time she had actually gone out with her sister Jean. Her husband was watching her children while she went out and had some fun with her sister. It was said that he got really worried when she hadn't come home yet, but he was tired and at 3 a.m. he fell asleep. He woke up to find a police car up the street, and he decided that he was going to go and tell this police officer that his wife was missing, that she hadn't come home yet, and that actually ended up being how Helen was identified. Once more, she'd been beaten, she'd been strangled with her own stocking. The contents of her handbag had been emptied beside her, but the actual handbag was gone. There was grass on the soles of her shoes, indicating that she had struggled. She did put up a fight. There was also evidence that at one point she tried to get up an embankment in an attempt to try and get away. The autopsy found that she had a deep bite mark on her upper thigh, and the indentation of the teeth showed that the two front teeth kind of overlapped. Once more, she was on a period at the time of the murder, and this time her sanitary towel was found under her arm, her left arm. So the police began investigating, and obviously they spoke to Jean because she was there that night, and they found out that the girls had actually met two men there. Both men introduced themselves as being called John. One man was very sort of forthcoming, whereas the other was very sort of quiet and kept things more to himself. The quieter John took more of an interest in Helen, and the other John was more interested in speaking to Jean. So they each had like this John interested in them, and they just enjoyed the night together. At one point, the quieter John, at this point I'm just going to refer to him as Bible John because that is who it is believed he was. So at one point, Bible John ends up in this row with management over a cigarette machine. He put 10p in it and it got stuck or something like that, so he ended up in this row, and the manager told him that he could come back the next day and get the money. From that, one of the bouncers actually noticed him and would later give a description. And then the four of them left together. The John that was speaking to Jean said his goodbyes to the group, and he left sort of separated on George Street so that he could catch a bus. Helen, Jean and the remaining John all hailed a taxi together, and they were just casually chatting away in the taxi. Jean said that John was going on about how he didn't drink because he had strict views on it. He was also referencing the Bible a lot, especially the Old Testament. He also said something to him which I found very strange, and so did Jean. He spoke about Barrowland as an adulterous den of inequality and how he disapproved of married women going there. And I mean, it really is some odd taxi conversations because you're literally there with two women who had gone to Barrowland. I'm not sure whether Jean was married, but Helen was. And so it was strange. Anyway, they're in the taxi for about 20 minutes before Jean gets out and goes home. John and Helen stayed in the taxi together. So, of course, Jean didn't know anything after that because she had gotten out, and so they get hold of the taxi driver that drove them that night, and he actually said that Helen didn't actually get out directly at a house because this taxi driver was new, and he kept driving around and kept losing the street and didn't know really where he was going, and so Helen just said, I'll get out and walk because, you know, it's quite close to where I live. He then said that once Helen had got out, the man quickly paid him and jumped out after her and caught up to her. He apparently saw this man grab Helen. I am not sure in which way, whether it looked playful or not, I don't know. But he just kind of thought that they were having a bit of a tiff, didn't really think too much of it, and then obviously drove off. Police at this point really did suspect that it was the same killer for all three women, and that they had a serial killer on their hands because there was just so many similarities with the victims and the murders. Many people began speculating that maybe these women had refused to have intercourse with him, possibly because they were on the menstrual cycle, possibly because they were married and did not want to, and that is why he attacked them. sexually assaulted them and left their sanitary products close by. Jean worked with the police to do a composite sketch of the suspect, and once more this was shown everywhere. This has been disputed a lot. Her description of the man doesn't actually fit other people's description of the man, so I guess take it with a pinch of salt, but this composite sketch became very famous and is thought to be the face of Bible John. So police took it to places like hairdressers because he had a short haircut and they were hoping that somebody would recognise that they had done it. They did everything they could. They asked the public to examine it and see whether they knew him. They went to dentists to try and match the dental marks left, the bite mark, to dental records for anyone, literally anyone, especially the 2 teeth that were crossed over, but they just found absolutely nothing. You can see the kind of scale of it. They had 100 detectives working on it with 50,000 witness statements and more than 5,000 suspects. But that's just huge scale and again, didn't lead anywhere. Jean went to more than 300 identity parades, but unfortunately couldn't identify the man that she was with that night. They sent in 16 detectives along with Jean to dance halls, to the Barrowland dance hall, over and over again in the hopes that she would recognise him, that he would turn up again, but that wasn't fruitful either. Again, there was a lot of speculation about how reliable the sketch actually was. I have read somewhere that apparently Jean was hypnotised when she gave the details, and the police took it to the bouncer, who basically disputed it, said that the hair colour was all wrong and that he was shorter. He said that they didn't have red hair and that his hair was darker. So again, we just don't know. After Helen's murder, it seemed like Bible John just stopped. Or at least he wasn't caught for any more murders, but I mean, he blatantly left the bodies out in the open to be found, and so he clearly did not try to hide them or anything like that. So if he did commit more murders, why would he not just do much of the same? So it really is believed that he stopped for some reason. And then it was kind of like he just killed 3 women and then vanished without a trace. They never found him. They don't know who he is to this day. Some people believe that maybe he was sent to jail for something or ended up in a mental health facility, and that is why the killing stopped. Other people thought that possibly he had passed away or moved away. But again, to this day, Bible John has knowingly not been caught. I mean, he could have been caught for all we know, but we just don't know that it's him. Obviously, with cases like these, there are quite a few theories in it. But again, these are just theories, speculation completely. You know, by no means are they facts. It's just what people believe happened or who Bible John may have been. A person that was a suspect at the time was actually arrested at Barrowland Ballroom after an altercation with another individual. This person was taken to the doctors, the hospital, because he needed stitches, I believe, or something like that, and he gave a false name. This was passed on to the police, and it was noted how he resembled the sketch of Bible John. This man went by John White, and it was later found out that as soon as his handcuffs were taken off, he escaped the hospital. It would turn out that years later, because people did really suspect that it was him, he was called John Edgar, and he came forward after literally getting fed up of being accused of it, kind of thing, and he gave his DNA, because what I failed to mention was they actually found a bit of DNA on Helen's stocking of the killer. And so he comes forward and he gives his DNA and it doesn't match whatsoever, and so his name was cleared, which is what he came forward for. He wanted his name to finally be cleared, and it was. Another theory is that not all murders were actually done by the same person. That the first kill was done by one person and then the second 2 were done by a copycat killer. A lot of people believe that because of the really long gap between the first and the second kill, and then others believe that there were actually 2 people involved the entire time. The police have thought that that was a possible line of inquiry and still look into these cases separately as well as together. If that's the case though, that would mean that Bible John never actually existed and that he was just a myth based on 3 separate killings of 3 women, which I actually find really, really interesting. Like, it just could be sort of a myth of our own making. I mean, I don't really necessarily think that. I just believe the similarities are too much to say that it wasn't the one person, but you know, it's still a possibility. Then there's the last theory that these murders were carried out by a convicted killer Peter Tobin. Many people believe that Peter Tobin was Bible John when he was obviously a lot younger. That is when he started his murders. Peter was convicted of the murder of a woman in 2006. He sexually assaulted, beat her, and then murdered her. He was sentenced for a murder in 2007, but how it relates to Bible John, he previously lived in Chesterton, Glasgow in 1969. He ended up meeting his girlfriend in Barrowland Ballroom, and they actually got married the same year that the Bible John murders stopped. With the violence that he inflicted on his victim, and some people do say that a younger Peter Tobin looks like the composite sketch of Bible John, it really makes people believe that he could have possibly been Bible John. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that there is a similarity between them? Peter was a Roman Catholic with strong religious views. All three of his ex-wives came forward and said that he was a very aggressive man and he assaulted them and was especially extremely violent while they were on their period. So I mentioned the DNA earlier. The DNA has been actually used to clear many suspects in the case, but the problem with it is that they didn't store it properly, and over time it has deteriorated, and they said that they are unlikely to link Peter Tobin to the case because the DNA sample has significantly deteriorated. What I don't understand really is that they were actually ruling people out through this DNA, so how can they say that they won't get a match to Peter Tobin because they were ruling out other people? But I guess like more time has passed, and so it might have deteriorated a lot more. But basically they say that, you know, even if they did get his DNA and tried to match it to that sample, that it would probably be too far gone to get anything from it anyway. So what do you guys think about Bible John? I do honestly think that the connections to Peter Tobin are huge, and there are a lot of similarities between what he did and Bible John. Him getting married coinciding with the killing stopping. You know, it does line up, but again, there is literally no evidence to tie Peter Tobin in with Bible John. He has always said, refuted that he had anything to do with it. So who knows? We can't say that he did it because there's just no evidence to prove that. Honestly, I doubt we'll ever find the truth about Bible John. I truly hope that we do, but I don't think we will. Jean passed away in 2010, and she said that without a doubt that Peter Tobin was not the man that she shared the taxi with. So there you go. I honestly hope that, you know, some closure is taken from this case eventually, but will we ever find out who Bible John was? Personally, I believe not. But yeah, that is the end of the case. If you've enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for similar content. Anyway guys, that's all I have today on the case of Bible John. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.